Welcome to Gold Derby. I'm senior editor Denton Davidson, and I'm joined by showrunner, executive producer, and writer for NBC's The Thing About Pam, Jenny Klein. Jenny, okay, so this is a chilling, fascinating true crime story that many of us watched on Dateline or heard their podcast. First of all, I'm a huge Dateline junkie. Are you a Dateline junkie like myself? Or when did you first become aware of Pam Hupp and this entire series of sort of appalling events that's followed her?
So I grew up watching Dateline. I'm from the Midwest. Like I watch it with my mom. And then this actual story of Pam Hupp and the podcast came to my attention through Blumhouse. I had done a show with them before, and Blumhouse and Renee and NBC News had all partnered to bring this story to the limited series Sphere, and Blumhouse was like, Jenny, this is the craziest story you've ever heard. We think you're gonna love it, and of course, I did.
And people are fascinated that a two-time Oscar winner like Renee Zellweger would come and do a TV limited series. Give us a scoop on Renee and just how pumped and excited she was to play this part and how involved she was in getting this show rolling.
Oh man, she's just an incredible producer to work with. Her and her producing partner, Carmela Casanelli, they have a production company called Big Picture Co. And they were chasing this podcast. So they are part of the origin story of this marriage between NBC News and Blumhouse and Big Picture Co. And seeing Renee bring Pam to life was, for me, pretty surreal, just because at that point I had been studying the real Pam Hupp, like so many surveillance videos, court transcripts, like the way she talks, because I had only met Renee like over Zoom, and then like as Renee, and by the time we went to New Orleans, we had written several scripts, and she walked on set in full Pam. And it wasn't just the physical appearance, it was her cadence, it was the way Pam sort of talks with her hands to sort of like distract you from how little sense she's making. And even Pam's like dropped foot. Renee is just a master of transforming and getting every detail of the real person. So we were just so lucky to work with her, and it was obviously a dream to write for an actor of her caliber.
And the team that went into that as well, there was prosthetics, the
Mhm.
costume design I thought was fantastic, and the big slushy, you got that big slushy in there. Whose idea was that to have that everywhere?
So the in real life, Pam went every day to get a large soda, a large Diet Dr. Pepper at her gas station. And so it became sort of this, like all of us, like all the writers, we were like, well, she's got to have her big soda. We see it in these interviews, on the surveillance videos, but it's almost like it becomes an accessory. It becomes like a security blanket for Pam, and part of her iconic look, and all part of the entire mission of the show. As you talked about, like Sean Hawley, Sean Hawley Cookson is our costume designer, in the same way that like what was going to be our version of Pam's big soda cup, of course our fictional version is Chill Chugs. I think I coined that, but TM. But it's her soda cup in our show. And then Sean Hawley Cookson is our costume designer, and she looked at so many photos of the real life people, and she went to so many Ross stores, like hunting for the right clothing, and every piece of real clothing that they wore, it would just be like a t-shirt. It'd be like the orange t-shirt Russ was arrested in, or the yellow shirt that Pam had the conversation about the trust with Detective McCarrick in episode 2. Every real piece of clothing took on this almost mythic significance for Sean Holly, and she just had to find it. And when she would find it, she'd be like, I found the shirt. And it was just embodying the mission of the whole crew in the same way, like you mentioned, the prosthetics, like RN, our special effects makeup artists, like sculpted down to the scar on Pam's chin. We just really wanted to bring all these real life details to life properly on our show.
Incredible work. And I have to ask also about Keith Morrison, who narrates this, because to me, he's like an American hero. Like I mean, I grew up just hearing that voice. I'm just like, yes. So how do you get Keith Morrison on board to do this? And how involved was he in saying what he says? Because he's got a very specific way of saying things. I mean, did he have any advice on like, maybe I wouldn't say it quite that way?
Of course. But always a gentleman. Well, what's unique about our show is that it comes from the Dateline world. There's meta aspects of our limited series because Dateline reporting was actually part of, I don't know, oh, it's going to air after the finale. So you will see how it gets involved, like Pam.
Spoiler alerts.
Yeah, spoiler alert. She posed as a Dateline producer. And so there's this meta narrative woven through the real true crime. And then we have the Dateline correspondent, American hero, Keith Morrison, narrating our show. And we sort of wanted it to be like less straightforward than on Dateline, but like a bit left of center, because this is a dramatic retelling. So he's more of like a omniscient, like philosophical narrator. And for me, that was exciting, lending, like as a writer, lending this meta aspect to the storytelling, because it creates this odd tonality where it's familiar because it's Keith, but it's also strange because it's in this context. And so I'd write the voiceover, and we'd send it to Keith, and sometimes he would tweak it or say it in a different way, and he was always like so respectful. And every single time it's like, oh, of course, this, like, no one knows how Keith Morrison sounds more than Keith Morrison, so like totally cool, Keith. Go for it.
And there's been multiple Dateline episodes about this specific case. As we also said, there was a podcast. And I love that some of the script is pulled straight out of what we see in those episodes, because Pam is sort of so arrogant and just fascinating to see that. It's good to know that this whole thing wasn't fabricated, because some of this stuff, it's like, you can't make up.
Yeah, you don't believe it.
So obviously the court cases and the police interviews are public, but how do you then, as a writer and as a team, fill in all the blanks? Because we see all these characters at home. That seems like a daunting task of not just the families, but the lawyers. And how do you fill in all those blanks of what we don't know and what we don't see as a screenwriter?
Yeah, I mean, telling a story based on real events and real people carries with it a real responsibility, which we took seriously. Like, that's why we had a really heavy research phase, and we talked to as many of the real people as possible. Of course, this is a dramatic retelling, and some events were fictionalized, like timelines, or creating composite characters that represent like multiple people we interviewed. But it's definitely unlike anything I've ever done before. And we wanted to talk to everyone involved in the Faria case, like people who knew Pam Hupp, like if they were willing to talk to the writers, we wanted to listen to their accounts. And then of course we had NBC News Studios sharing their in-depth reporting on the case. It's like everything they did, like how much could even fit in the podcast? Like there was so much more in addition to public record. It was really this like treasure trove of material. By treasure trove, I mean a giant Google Drive that we just dug into. And then but yeah, like showing characters at home, like that's where being a dramatist comes in. That's where the dramatic retelling comes in, where I don't know exactly what home lives were. I can only go by what we were told by people we were interviewing, and try to fill in the blanks. I've sort of, this is like not a great comparison, but it's Jurassic Park's one of my favorite movies, so it's the closest thing I can liken it to. Like, you know, the part in Jurassic Park when like the DNA strand like explains how they make dinosaurs. So they have the basis for DNA, they have the like what was in the mosquito, and then they have to fill it in with frog DNA. And so for us, we have like the building blocks of our DNA. We have what we know, we have the facts. And then as a dramatist, just filling it in to the best of our ability to create actual character arcs for a satisfying episode of television for the viewers.
I love that comparison.
Okay, cool.
In your research, it's I think part of the fascinating things about Pam is the age at which she started sort of doing all of this. And we get to see at some point, you know, her mother was maybe abusive towards her when she was younger. But when you were doing your research, did anyone say anything peculiar about her when she was in her teens or her 20s? Because it seems like she was in her midlife when she just sort of went way off the rails. And I mean, she killed 2, maybe 3 people in a span of a few years. It's very bizarre.
I mean, bizarre is a keyword that comes to mind. There's a lot of mystery there. Like I can't like say for certain like what happened in her teens and her early 20s. But we were able to talk to some people close to Pam, and they gave us a window into at least like her time in Florida with Mark, as you saw in episode 5, and sort of what she was like as a kid and a teenager. And from these accounts, it seemed like she was fairly popular. She was really funny. She could make like a whole room laugh. But it also sounded like there was like a devious quality, a quality that enjoyed one-upsmanship.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And as a writer, we know, I mean, I know you've written a couple of the episodes, other writers take on other specific episodes. How do you guys work together on that to make sure it's like sort of it stays a cohesive piece? And how do you decide, oh, I want to tell this story and you can have this one? How do you come to those decisions?
Well, we broke all the episodes together. We had an incredible writers room. People from like all different backgrounds, different areas of expertise. Like our staff writer, Travis Sentel, he actually like teaches a course in like military deception and like is a part-time magician. And so like he knows how like con artists work, was a big asset. Several writers' parents were in like law enforcement. And so like we, even if like it's like the person whose name is on the scripts, like you write the draft and then there's like rewrites, of course. But like we broke the stories together, so like everyone is fully informed. We really love it's a group process, and that makes all the episodes better. It's like not like one person has ownership over like one episode. Yeah, it's like a group effort.
And I also want to talk about Judy Greer and Josh Duhamel because they play the attorneys. Judy Greer plays DA Leah Askey, and Josh Duhamel plays Joel Schwartz, the defense attorney. And I mean, those two really give great performances. Leah is almost as unlikable as Pam in this series. she comes close. So how important was it for you guys to round out those characters? And tell a little bit more of their story as well, because those two are really integral to this whole thing.
Oh my God, yes. I'm so happy you brought up Josh and Judy. Yeah, because Leah Askew was a tricky role because she had to be grounded dramatically for her drive to be understandable, even as she's wrongfully prosecuting Russ Faria, but there's also these like comedic moments that for Leah are like born from her character, and often like being with the prosecution by the nature of what actually happened, like feels like it's a farce, but it's actually sort of close to what happened. And Leah, played by Judy Greer, is so organic, and Judy has the ability to make things funny without even trying. Like there's not even an effort behind it, which is of course like an incredibly talented and skilled actor, and she's just so delightful to work with. Like the directors would say cut, but she would just keep going, and so you wouldn't want things to end because she would just like improvise like beyond the scene, like different on every take. And so the whole crew was always laughing. And we were so lucky to have her. And for Josh, I feel like he's the ability to make everything feel like it's gonna be all right, even when it might not be, which is like one of Joel Schwartz's superpowers. Like there's this charm and effortlessness about Josh that really endears you to Joel. And so then it makes things as he's immersed in Troy, like all the more galling for the viewer when you're experiencing these inner workings through Joel's eyes as played by Josh.
And you mentioned some of the comedy. How do you decide how to walk that fine line? In this series particular, there are some funny moments, partly because Pam is just a ridiculous person, but she's also evil. So there's a harsh crime, and then there's sort of this ridiculous person. How do you find that balance of inserting the funny moments in a really tragic story?
Exactly what you said. Like it's an incredibly tragic story. Um it's completely heartbreaking and disturbing on the one side, and then on the other side of the very same coin you have this totally ridiculous person, like you used exactly the right word, Pam Hupp. And so simply dramatizing or cinematically visualizing her lies, as we did through what we called in the writers room like her Pam visions, um bringing to life exactly what she's saying happened. It's these absurd details that like more often than not come from Pam herself, and that lends this sort of levity or absurdity that gets wound around the grounded emotional center of Russ and Betsy and her daughters. So it's like you're really feeling their pain and frustration when you're with them, and that makes everything you're seeing Pam doing feel all the more upsetting and all the more aggravating. So it's like the viewer is channeling what people who are affected by Pam's actions are feeling.
And when you go into a project like this and you're a showrunner, an executive producer, and a writer, which is the most challenging hat for you to wear? And what comes the most natural?
Um, I think, well, I love being in a writer's room. I love working with other writers and breaking story. That probably comes the most natural because it's like what I've been doing for many years. And I guess a new hat is like speaking publicly about what we're writing as the showrunner. But I'm really enjoying it. Thanks again.
And are there, would you ever do this with any other Dateline cases? I mean, maybe you do this once a year now, get Keith Morrison back. I mean, could we see this become a thing?
Um, I I don't know exactly what's going on, but I do know that Blumhouse and NBC News have a partnership, and there are obviously many more Datelines in the can. So many crazy stories. So we'll see what
Keep an eye
happens.
out.
Yeah, keep an eye out.
Jenny Klein, thank you for chatting with Gold Derby today. The Thing About Pam is on Peacock. It's on Hulu. So if you haven't checked it out, go check it out. And Jenny, good luck with the upcoming awards season for TV, and congratulations on all your great work.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Denton. This was wonderful speaking about the show, and thank you for watching.